So today is the feast of Saints Joachim and Anna, the ancestors of God, as we call them, the parents of the Virgin Mary. We celebrate them today because yesterday was the feast of her nativity, of the birthday of the Virgin Mary. And the tradition about her birth, which is not given in the Gospels, but is given in another document which I've talked about to you before, the proto-gospel of James, which was accepted by the early church as having authoritative data on the subject, and therefore acceptable, was that Joachim and Anna were advanced in years and did not have a child. And she was beyond the age of being able to give birth. And this was a great shame and a calumny for them, because having children was, in essence, the path to any kind of immortality. If you didn't have some children to keep your name going, to keep your family line going, that was it when you ended. You were done. And it was a great shame within the Jewish community because, of course, every child was essential for the continuation of the holy people of God. So there's a lot of pressure. And the fact that they didn't have any children was great sadness for them. But in time, God answered their prayers, much as he had in the time of Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel, and even in the time of more close to them, Zechariah and Elizabeth. So it's a very similar story of God hearing their prayer. And as you can see in the icon here in the top corner, if you can see it, it depicts the nativity, but it also shows up there in the top corner, Joachim and Anna inside their smooching. That's what that is. And that's the icon of marriage up there. It's beautiful. I love that that's in those icons. And God heard their prayer and granted them, through their marital relationship, the blessing of this child, who became, of course, the Virgin Mary. There was, of course, more to it than that, right? It's more than just, well, that was nice for those two people at that time in history. Really, it's quite a symbol of the entire new covenant of God. Because in essence, the Old Testament church had become barren. It had become lifeless. It became unable to bring people closer to God and to salvation. It had become kind of a corruption of itself, a farce of itself. You see all these indications where Jesus is arguing with the lawyers and the scribes and the Pharisees, and they're all trying to excuse themselves from actually doing the one thing that matters, which is to love God with all their heart, with all their strength, with all their mind, with all their soul, and their neighbor as themselves. They've got a whole host of ways that they were excusing themselves out of that. And he continually put it right back in their face. So what was happening with Joachim and Anna, giving birth to the Virgin Mary, who then, of course, gives birth to God in the flesh, our Lord Jesus Christ, is part of that bigger picture, that bigger plan of God drawing forth life from a barren rod, like the rod of Jesse, from water, from a stone, you know. It is the transformation of that which was dead into that which is alive. That's why that beautiful hymnography you're just saying of the feast, you know, they give birth, Joachim and Anna, their curse is abolished, Adam and Eve are no longer affected by the corruption of death. We are freed from the guilt of sin, and they give birth to the nourisher of our life. The whole thing works together through this simple life of marriage and the relationship with God that they have. So last week, I wasn't here. I was celebrating a marriage of one of our own, as you know. Many of you were there. It was very nice in Fort Wayne. And then for the days after that, before I had to go to our Episcopate Congress, which was Friday and Saturday, I had the chance to visit people back home in Michigan. So it worked out very nicely for me. And over the course of a week or so, I got to visit over 12 of my old friends, which was a pretty whirlwind tour, but it was great. Quality time with each of them, sat down, caught up, talked about life. It was a wonderful thing. Some of them married, some of them single, some divorced, some remarried. And you see how all of this plays out in the life of your friends as you grow older. You see how things have changed since you were in college, and how your thinking has changed, and it's just an amazing experience. But on one of those days, I went to visit a couple, one of whom was my maid of honor at my wedding. And it was very, very important. One of my best friends, one of the few women who I consider, I'm an only child, so I consider her my sister. And she was essential in my path coming back to Christ. As I struggled with it, I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I mean, how can I resolve myself to this? When I was about 22 years old, 21 years old. And she was there and just helped walk me through my reversion to Orthodoxy. And then she was there for my wedding, she was there for my ordination. So she was there for me at really important times in my life. She helped rescue my relationship to the woman who would become my wife, and I screwed up very early on in our relationship. So children, you over your existence. And it's great because I don't get to see her very often, and her husband. And I get there, and about 5 minutes into the visit, she says, "This morning I got the news that I have breast cancer." And it took me probably about 10 minutes to think, do you want me to leave maybe? Maybe you need to spend the time with your husband and do what you need to do. I'm like, I can visit another time. And she said, absolutely not. It's perfect that you are the one who's here today. Of course, when I'm with my old friends, I never think of like I'm a priest, right? I'm just Dave. So like the idea that priest was with her on that day never even entered my mind. But so we spent a week, talked, and I was there for her, and it was just an amazing thing, and I'm still processing that. But part of what she's going through because of her family history, what is going to happen is she's going to have a double mastectomy, and also probably preventatively, just to be sure, she's going to have her ovaries removed. And she's my age, 46, 47 years old. So she's probably not going to use the ovaries for too much longer anyway. But nonetheless, this to me, that this should happen in the week of the Feast of the Nativity of the Mother of God and the story of Joachim and Anna. In the story of Joachim and Anna, God worked through a barren woman to give us life. Now my friend has to shed the very organs of womanhood and become barren so that she can live. So that she can. This is just a mystery to me, and it's amazing. I have a lot of confidence and hope for her. I think that with modern medicine, they'll catch it and they'll do it, but there is no guarantee. It's cancer, and it's terrifying. And much to her credit, she's just as she always has, she's tackling it head on, came out like the day after on Facebook and told the world the whole story and what she's going to go through and what's happening. So it's just great. And one of the things she said is, it was actually just by happenstance that she even checked, because they were watching some TV show where that issue came up, and just kind of on the spur of the moment, she said, yeah, I probably haven't done that in a while, I should check. And sure enough, found the lump, and then, went to the doctor, and within a week, they found out. So sisters, mothers, check yourselves regularly for the sake of your children. She has 3 beautiful young children. I can't imagine how those kids are dealing with it at age 10 and 8. 10 and 8. How terrifying that must be for them, not knowing what's going to happen. And you can't say everything's going to be all right. You can say that, but you have to be very careful. And I would say everything is going to be all right, but not necessarily the way we want it to be. And that's true for all of life. There are no guarantees in this life for our health, for our well-being, for surviving the day. But as Christians, we can say everything's going to be all right, even though we might go through a period of stank. We might go through a period of pain and suffering and difficulty. But it is going to be all right. We are going to die unless Christ comes in this generation. No matter what we do, whether it's tomorrow or 100 years from now, but we will live again. God showed through the rod of Jesse, through the water in the barren rock, through the root of Jesse, his virgin mother, that he can bring life from that which is dead. He can restore vitality to that which is sick. And he can bring back to existence that which has even been an idol. That is the power of our God. And that is exactly what it is that we are here to participate in. Not just to say, not just to pray, not just to believe in, but to step into and to taste with our mouths and open into our hearts the living God, Jesus Christ, who destroys the power of death and who brings life from darkness and decay. So that is my hope for my sister, Kristen. If you're a prayer warrior, or if not, please pray for Kristen, who's going through this difficult time for the next many months. And realize that God works as he will, but God is also good and he's also merciful. We put our hope in him for our healing and for our eternal life. Amen. Christ is among us. Amen.